Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with Drink a Beer and Play a Game, and welcome to another episode of the Power Hour.
Yes, welcome to episode 103. Thank you once again for joining us. Speaking of Power Hours, be on the lookout for our former guest, Michelle, aka Petey's Power Hour. We just recently recorded with her, so whenever she gets her episode with us out there, we'll definitely share it with everyone. We'll whore it out there, so make sure to check it out. It's definitely a fun time. And speaking of guests, we have yet another guest with us tonight. So he's a guy I've been following for a while. I actually got set up through seeing him through our buddy G to the Next Level. And his name is Sean, but you might know him on YouTube as Jenovi. Sean, how you doing, man?
Hey everyone! Thank you so much for having me on. I'm doing fantastic, and I've been following you guys for some time. So it was quite exciting that you reached out and invited me on the show, and I finally get to chat to two people that I've been watching for at least a couple years now.
It was funny when I first messaged you. I was like, "Hey, do you want to be on the show?" And you're like, "Yeah, I'd love to." Is this Brian or Jim? I was like, "What the hell?" He actually knows our page a little bit.
Now, be honest, Sean. Were you a little disappointed to hear it was Jim?
That's all right.
A little bit. I was hoping you could say it's both. We don't let one touch this account without the other one being right next to me. I was a little bit heartbroken.
Don't worry, they always are. I'm used to it. No, Brian's also like, God damn it, Jim, some of the things you post sometimes. I'm like, yay. You don't want to be the social guy? This is what you got to deal with.
That's the burden and blessing of having two people. You can split duties. I'll handle Instagram and YouTube. He gets Twitter, and then sometimes I see what he posts, and I just go, that's Jim.
Well, the real issue is whenever Jim says something that's, a little bit controversial, he's telling people he's Brian.
Yeah, yep. No, I've literally had friends just go like, did you see this? Like, did you post that? I was like, it wasn't me. That was Jim.
Hey.
And it's funny because, obviously, like Jim said, our good buddy G, through him, but it's as soon as we looked up your channel, on top of just loving your channel and we're going to get into the work you do, I noticed, I was like, Jim, there's a recurring theme. I said, it's because of you. It's a lot of Sega fans.
What?
Very hardcore Sega fans.
We got taste.
I was like, that's a common thread. But
what's interesting is that Jim has a full Nintendo setup behind him, and yours looks to mostly be Xbox 360, some PS2, and Genesis. I do see some Super Nintendo loose carts down below you, but
yep.
I don't think I see any Sega-related merchandise behind Jim.
Oh, don't worry. I can wreck this camera real fast.
Yeah.
I'll put this whole production in the shitter to prove my honor.
So
There we go.
So Jim used to have it was always the Sega wall behind Jim, just his Genesis collection, and then he decided to get more professional with a real desk, and now we get to see beautiful panels behind him.
I'm trying to decide what I want to throw back here.
It's really necessary when you're doing some sort of podcast or show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gone full Milton, and I look like I'm truly in a basement, like I am.
No, but Sean, why don't you tell the people, give it a rundown of what your channel's all about and what you hope to get out there with your videos.
And of course, first, tell the people where they can find you, then explain.
Yeah. You could just search Jenovi and you'll find me. I don't think there's really anybody else using that tag. I remember when I first grabbed that in about the mid-90s, I did a search on probably web crawler and nothing came up. And I thought, yeah, this is it right here. Something that nobody else has. Something I don't have to put 1, 2, 3 after. And it's worked ever since. I have the name on PSN and Xbox and Nintendo. And yeah, I mean, it's fantastic having a name that nobody at the time had. So, but yeah, if you just look up Jenovi, you'll find my channel. And the show's essentially called Retro Impressions, and it's a look back at gaming history and analysis as well of certain games, essentially starting with the very beginning, which would be the Odyssey, and going all the way through to, well, should be the GameCube, although I haven't really touched anything GameCube related, but that was kind of the idea of the channel. So for me, the idea is to really try to run down topics that are either undercovered or not covered at all. And a lot of times the subject matters that I cover are me answering questions that I have in my own head. And so I'm tracking down this information. I compile a video to really kind of put an answer out there for a question that I had. So
That's definitely a thing that's always really interested me, because between Brian and I, like, I'm the one who likes the weird, random, the deep cut kind of stuff. So as I'm looking through your page, I'm just like, oh, unreleased Gizmondo games. You're talking my language here. Or, you know, as you were going through all the 32X games that never came out, which shocked me how many games were like planned or at least had a little article and stuff like that. Or as you're talking about like the Jaguar and all the other randomness, or the uplink you did about the CDI. So as you know, the more deep stuff, I'm just like, this is right up my alley here.
Yeah, well, when I saw, same as Jim, I mean, when I saw you putting up unreleased games, those are the ones that like truly, truly fascinate me. And, you know, you do, as we said, a really deep dive. You clearly do a ton of research, and the video shows, I mean, pulling news clips, pulling little just one-liners from gaming magazines or just little articles. Was there a specific game that sparked you that said, I really want to do this, and then did that automatically lead, or did you already kind of have a list in your head and you're like, I want to hit on a bunch of these games, and then you kind of found yourself tracking down more after the fact?
yeah, so the whole deal actually started with the 32X because it's a system that I actually purchased at launch. And so we were aware at launch that there was a bunch of games coming down the pipeline, and a lot of them never hit store shelves. So I obviously, my channel is fairly, I think, I think it's probably maybe an overstatement, but it's heavily influenced by the 32X. It's one of the systems I'm really passionate about, and I feel like it was really underrepresented when I started my channel. So I have a lot of content on there kind of focusing on the 32X. And so with all these videos, essentially what happens is that I'll look over the complete period of time when a system was actually active. So like with the 32X, we start looking at magazines like in the early 94, and then we'll follow through all the way until like late 96. And we're looking for any mention of anything that we can find. And we're going through all magazines that we can locate. And we're looking through French publications and Italian publications and British publications. And we're looking through all American publications and some Japanese publications, and trying to use, some people that I know that live over in Japan to help translate some of these articles, which you may or may not have seen on some of these videos. And we start compiling a list, and then we'll go through and we'll look at lists that other people have compiled for some of these systems, and we'll try to run down exactly what is accurate and not accurate on these lists. And a lot of times, a lot of this information is not going to be accurate whatsoever. And sometimes there's no sources, and so it's just rumors. And like there's one on this Gizmondo video that I'm going to cover here. It's a Warhammer 40,000 game that was it's on every Gizmondo list that you look up. If you look up unreleased Gizmondo, you're going to see this on the list. And the reality is that it actually was never in development for the Gizmondo. That's just completely false. And what happened is, and this is things I like to track down, it's like, okay, so like how did this actually become associated with being unreleased, even though it was never in development? And like with that case, the game was never in development, but the company called Warthog in about 2003 or 2004 put together a presentation to show the company. It's called GameWorks, I believe, that owns that property.
Yeah.
So they put together a presentation to show them a new Blood Bowl game and a new Warhammer 40,000 game to try to acquire rights to use the IP in new games, and they were rejected. Well, people got a hold of this footage when it leaked, and they realized that the company that owned Gizmondo is named Tiger Telematics, acquired Warthog Games. And so they thought that because after they acquired Warthog, all those games were repurposed strictly as Gizmondo exclusive games, that this game must have been in the works and was going to be pushed over to the Gizmondo. But the reality is that the game was never in the works. It was just a presentation that was put together to try to acquire the IP, and it was rejected. So it's going to be debunked in this coming video. And that's part of the fun, is kind of running down these leads and trying to put together something that's, thoroughly researched and sourced. And I don't always release, like, I have like these big spreadsheets that I keep, and I typically keep track of all the sources and where I found them, or where the rumor came from. And So like when you actually look through the 32X series, that is every single 32X unreleased game that was actually in development or planned or under license. I didn't leave anything out. When I like the CDI, the 3DO M2, most of these series that I do, they are not just covering a handful of games, they cover every single game on the system. And the only exception is actually the Atari Jaguar series that I was doing. And I don't know if I'll ever complete that series because there's a lot of drama in the Jaguar community, which I don't know if I'll go into here or not, but it puts a bad taste in my mouth and it makes doing that series not a whole lot of fun.
Of all the communities to have a be really toxic and vicious with each other, I'm assuming, I don't go on these third, but the Jaguar of all things.
Yeah, well, there's a gatekeeping community, and a lot of them are actually based over in the UK. And for a lot of years, these people were putting out information about the history of the system and these games. And what I discovered looking into this was that all of this information that was out there was actually false, and that the people were fabricating these claims to lift themselves up as historians for the Jag. And so we started debunking them through these videos, or I say that we did. I did. I say we because there's actually a couple other people that were kind of helping me run down some of this information. And I won't tell you exactly who these people are right now, but what happened is we ended up finding out that some of these people were even taking credit for development behind these games, and they were never involved. And some of these people were taking credit for all kinds of stuff. And we end up finding out that this is happening, and man, it is just a freaking mess. It's just absolutely a mess. And yeah. So,
and it is such a more obscure thing to try to get credit for that it's odd that they'd be doing it to that level. But thinking of your 32X, and I saw that was like, your first videos going over that, I have to ask the question, I'm sure you've been asked it many times, but what is your favorite 32X game?
Probably Virtual Racing or Stellar Assault. It's one of the two. They're really close. I think it just kind of depends on my mood, but I think those are the two best games on the 32X. And Stellar Assault is just something very special in my opinion. I think it's really underappreciated, and I think it's clearly one of the best games. I did a video which was the top 10 32X games, and I had an idea. Instead of just putting out my top 10 32X games, I actually got in touch with people that I knew had played through most of the library, if not the entire library, and then I got them on board with the video. And I laid down a requirement that they had to play every single game, and then they had to formulate a list, and then we ranked the games 1 to 10 on the list that everybody sent me, and we assigned points going in reverse, so 10 points for number 1 and 1 point for number 10. And we had people like John Linneman on from DF Retro. I had Sean Long on, who is RGT85. G to the Next Level was part of it. Tyler, who you recently had on your show here, he was a part of that. So we got some people that are pretty well known in the community and that I knew were intimately involved and knowledgeable about that entire library, and we had them submit their top 10, and Stellar Assault, almost without exception, came out as number 1 or number 2 on every single person's list. And it was missing off one person's list, and the only game to appear across all lists was Virtual Racing. But I think it speaks as a testament to both of those games as to how highly people regard those, especially when you take such a large swath of these games. It was, I can't remember how many people actually participated in this video submitting list, but it ended up being something like half of the library receiving votes.
Yeah.
That's what I've said before, because I have 10 games. It's only a 30-some game library, but even 10 games, it's like, I think they're all quality. And even having like 30% games being in the library being good, it's like, that ain't too bad. And it's a shame when you see like Shadow Squadron or the Virtual Racings and the Virtual Fighters of the world, and you're like, God, what could have been if it just was like given time and love.
Yeah, and I think you definitely have this issue with the 32X and a lot of that generation where, at the time, people were looking at it compared to what was already... Thank you. The dinner has arrived.
Hey, guys. Soivus.
Yeah, so I think that there's definitely an issue where people are looking at these games through the colored lens of the era. And the colored lens of the era was, what is the graphics doing for me compared to the best available on a PC. And so you have a game like Raw that comes out, the WWF Raw that comes out, and it's not a very pretty game. They never really focus on the visuals. Essentially, every single release was just a full 1-year upgrade from the previous version. And the best WWF game to come out up and through 1996 was Raw on the 32X. It doesn't look great. It got absolutely hammered by the press because it didn't look great. But you go and you play the game, it's actually very competent. There's nothing wrong with it. It's actually a good game.
It has Quang.
Nobody can, yeah, it certainly has Quang, but nobody considered this to be a good game at the time because they would focus on, it looks like an early Genesis game, and they just couldn't get over that. Well, now we go back and we look at these games and we're like, oh yeah, I like that look. I can appreciate that look. Mm-hmm. But so many of these games that were coming out in 95 and 96, we're already moving on to, the PlayStation and 3D graphics and Ridge Racing. Tekken had hit the market, and games that were sprite based they weren't getting any love.
Yeah. They took the back seat. I mean, yeah, it was the new flavor of the month, if you will. They're going to that 3D, and it's funny because I've said many times the PS1 and N64 are the worst aging consoles I can think of. I mean, when you look at things that age well, 8-bit, 16-bit, they've stood the test of time for the most part, and I think with flying colors. PS1 and 64, you can have some classics, but for the most part, that 3D polygonal style, sure, we may have a nostalgia for it, but man, it just did not age as well. So, but it was the hot thing. It was like that. We knew that was leading us to what we have now, which is insane. But it was, you get wrapped up in the moment and don't appreciate that little in between.
Yeah, for me, being a young man when the 64 came out, I think all my friends hated me because I talked so much trash on that system. I hated it. And I had nothing good to say about it. I thought it was pure garbage.
Hang up. Did you talk about my love like that?
By the way, Sean, I'm so glad you didn't know Jim before you did that 32X list, because if somehow you would have gotten him on there, he would have screwed up the whole bell curve with that terrible selection for number 1. 1 through 10, you'd have been like, why does he have something completely off the wall from everyone else? And everyone said this was the worst games on here.
Why is Motocross in here? Is he trolling me? What the?
It's not a bad game. Guy? It's not a bad game.
Yeah, I mean, Jim and I said the 32X. I actually did go through and play through all of them when we were doing these crazy months of let's do every game in a series or this or that. And that was perfect because that's about the length of a month. So we were like, we're going to do a whole month of all 32X games. That never came to fruition, but still it's something I would like to hit on because, like Jim said, it's a very interesting library. It's not just one note. There's a lot of different type of titles. And like I said, I love your deep dives, but even more than just talking about the 32X, it's fascinating how much didn't come out. And as Jim said, had some of those titles came out on it, I don't know if it really would have changed the course of time because we knew things were coming down the pipeline, moving on to new technologies. But still, some of those games, were there any of those games that particularly still burn you that they didn't get released more than others?
Well, there's definitely one, and that's AVP. And I think everybody feels that way because I think the AVP, Capcom's AVP, by the way, let's make sure that we are being clear here, is one of the best arcade games of that era. And it's never come home. It's never come home, except in some... There's something that just came out I heard about.
It's one of the Capcom shaped arcade stick they had.
Yeah. Not the same. Not the same. So to have that game canceled and knowing that it was only going to come out on the 32X was a massive heartbreaker for me. And it's still the game I think that probably hurts the most that we didn't receive because, I mean,
it's an amazing
it would have been a system seller.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I put that as my favorite that I used to play back in the day. Not that since I've discovered, that is my favorite arcade game. Don't get me wrong. As a kid, I loved The Simpsons. I love X-Men. But man, that game, it just hit differently, and it was so much fun. And
and it still holds up too, because
yeah.
we'll get on like one of those Pandora 4 boxes over. I have a friend, his name's Armando. He owns a retro game store in Ontario, California called Pixel Vault, and I'll go hang out at his store, and he has a Pandora 4 or 5 or whatever it is with the the arcade style setup, and I'll take my kids down there and we'll play through AVP, and they're loving it, and
still holds up very much. Yeah,
it's fantastic still. Yeah.
No, yeah, that really is a great game. I think if that would have hit it, I mean, who knows? I think you definitely would have moved a lot more, and it could have potentially opened up the idea of Sega even getting more of those arcade titles ported over, if possible. Because, unfortunately at that time, the only system you can think of when you think arcades games that were ported well was Neo Geo. And, I felt like nobody I knew could afford that, so...
Yeah, I've still... I'm trying to think if I know anybody who even owns one. I mean, I own a Neo Geo, but I'm like really into this stuff. But I don't ever remember seeing one until I actually bought one. That's the first time I ever saw one. So I mean, that's just the reality of it. If you grew up in a big city, though, like a guy like Bob from Retro RGB, he grew up in New York, and he knew all these guys that own these arcade units, and they're just always around that stuff. But the reality is that for anybody that was outside of those areas, you just didn't see that stuff. It just wasn't around. I don't even remember seeing Neo Geo cabs in arcades out where we lived, or just out in these more rural areas. You just didn't see that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Brian and I are both from the Philly area, and I didn't even know about Neo Geo or TurboGrafx until I started really getting deep into the whole retro gaming scene on YouTube, like 2011, 2012. I'm like, wait, this was out back then? I never even heard of this. Like, I didn't get magazines or anything either, but it's still like, damn, all the shit I missed out on.
Yeah. Yeah, in our grade school, there was a kid. He was probably, well, looking back, he definitely must have been, like, the richest kid in our area. And he would, like, talk crap to everyone about, like, having Super Genesis or Sega Genesis or Super NES, and we'd make fun of him. We're like, you have a system nobody even knows. What are you talking about? You have a Neo Geo. We're like, what is that? Like, we hadn't even heard of it, so it was so foreign. But looking back,
it's funny because you look through the magazines when you're a kid, and you're seeing like the CDI is coming out, you're seeing the TurboGrafx 16s coming out, you're drooling over these things. The 3DO is coming out, you're drooling over it, And for me, you never seen any of the stuff ever hit market, but I mean, I would have traded my everything Sega for this stuff. But then you go and you actually acquire it and you start playing it, and there's definitely some merits to these systems, but a good game is a good game on any system.
Right.
And graphics, as you get older, as I said earlier, they just don't really have the impact that they once did. So really, the Super Nintendo, the Genesis just have such quality libraries. I wouldn't really trade them for almost anything. And especially knowing what I know now, back then, I would have to tell myself, don't trade them if you can, because you will not enjoy the games as much as you're enjoying your systems now.
Yeah, no, that is a great point. But we did want to ask though, so between doing these documentaries, between just when you are able to do some of these reviews, what have you been able to actually play recently? Like, do you have any games that you can play more casually, or are you playing anything that's kind of in the works that's really your time consumer right now?
Yeah, mainly I've been playing through Gizmondo games. So, but outside of the Gizmondo, I've been playing Paprium. I'm trying to get through the whole entire game there. I got my copy back in December, and that's really the main deal I've been doing. I also kind of like sports games, and I have the new NBA 2K game, and I've been playing that, although it's kind of crappy compared to a lot of the older ones. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. It's obviously it's just a big money sink, and I refuse to give them a dime outside of the purchase price.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as enjoyable, but I try to play some of the more old school modes, like Team Manager and whatnot, and it's all right. It's a good 15 minutes to kill if I want to turn on a game and
just play. Yeah.
Just play. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Jim? Have you been playing anything this past week?
Well, I finally finished up Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero for the review we're going to be doing on that.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Hey, I remember owning that game when it was new, and I hated it. So would I like it now, or would I still hate it? That's like the question I always have to ask myself.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. even as an interesting thing to talk about. And I got mine like, God, I miss EB Games because I got it when only a year or two into the PS2 when they would send you like $5 game bundles for $5. So that complete, like, fresh, no one ever touched it was in there. And I played it for a little bit and I was like, oh my God, I hate this. So I was like, all right, we'll put it away. And funny enough, when Brian and I were first, even 2 to 3 years before we even started the page, we were like, okay, we're going to be an AVGN ripoff, so let's do, what game do you want to do? And I was like, we're doing Mythology Sub-Zero. And we played it for like an afternoon, we made our notes, and we never did anything with it. But it's like, one of these days, we're going to get back to it. So we wound up doing all the friggin' Mortal Kombat games, and everyone's like, where's the
10-year
spin-offs?
anniversary.
Yep. Yep.
So they're all asking for the spin-offs, so of course we're going to be going back with that. So, yeah, I had played through Special Forces already. Joy. And, yeah, finished up Mythologies. But also, finally got around to Panzer Dragoon Remake, and like, I never played Panzer Dragoon. I never had a Saturn. That's like the biggest gaping hole in my like whole collection in like gaming library history. So I wasn't around for it like back when it was new, and I don't know. I just can't. I can't get with that. Like, no matter what I try, maybe it's me using a Joy-Con and I should use my Pro Controller, but it never feels like the aiming ever works outside of like just doing the homing attack the entire time, which to me is...
I'm not like a huge Panzer Dragoon fan. It's probably almost sacrilegious to say that, but but everybody I know that is a massive fan hates that new game. They absolutely hate it. So I don't think you're necessarily out of the Panzer Dragoon boat yet until you go back and try some of the original games. Yeah, I think that's about all that can be said there.
I do have Orta, so maybe I'll finally get around to playing that and be like, oh, this is this game, but fun. So hopefully that, hopefully that wipes the taste out of my mouth. But speaking of old stuff I've been going back to, I also finally, I got the re-release for Episode 1 Racer. And I was like, let me pop this in. And it's basically like, they did a good job with it. They basically optimized the, I'm going to guess the Dreamcast version. And they just made it widescreen and threw it on the new systems. And I have it on the Switch, and the cutscenes are choppy as hell, but the gameplay itself is like silky smooth, which is all that matters. So I'm playing it more now than I ever did even back in the day. I'm like, this is pretty damn fun.
That was one of the few games on the 64 that I felt was pretty fun.
Oh yeah, it was pretty damn fun back in the day. Like, that was always like a rental. That was like a recurring rental until I like eventually bought it like years down the line. But then I was like, I'll play this eventually. I played it enough back in the day. But now playing this cleaner version, I'm like, man, the gameplay still really holds up. It's nice to just have like simple, like no frills, but like still just like stupid, crazy speeds and stuff like that without a lot of the gimmicks with it. And just, a nice little throwback to the childhood. So, yeah, I'm impressed there.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the games. I went through the whole 64 library, not for my channel, just for my own self, and I think I played every single game just to kind of see if I can find some gems in there that I would appreciate. I mean, there is some games that I like, but
there's like 5.
For the most part, I actually kind of hate the library, and but I do remember that being one of them. There's another game. I think it's I owned it when the game was new. I still own it somewhere, and I think it's called Silicon Valley Space Station or Space Station Silicon Valley.
It's a weird one. Yep.
I've been afraid to go back to it because I remember loving it and it being the only game I actually really liked back in the 90s. And so sometimes that can be really dangerous, going and revisiting these positive memories because maybe they aren't quite as good as you remember.
Rose tinted glasses, yeah. And plus, Jim, you're also recognizing probably too that you're not using the terrible controller while you're playing the new game, so that probably
controller's never an issue, Brian. The controller's perfectly fine.
I mean, like Sean's saying, maybe you're just not you're not giving up the fact that controller's no good, and you're overcompensating. And now, if you could play it on a good something better, some of the games
it was
are
revolutionary.
Okay. It was not.
They gave us rumble. They gave us a stick. You shut your mouth. You can hold it 3 different ways.
No, it's funny you're talking about 64 because our good buddy Astral, who decided to send us or ask us to review Donkey Kong 64. I am still going through that. And does Sean have it on hand?
Oh, what's he doing?
Yep.
There it is.
There's that terrible thing. If you want to burn that, you can just go ahead and do that because that's I'm still very early. I'm a few hours into the game, and I've
It's pain.
The collectathon that game is, and the amount of backtracking so far has just made it like. I just find myself getting bored with it very easily, and the annoyance of missing jumps because the camera is not that good, even with the lock-on feature. I'm waiting for it to get real spectacular, if it ever does.
Yeah, I really struggled with the 64 when it was new, and even revisiting it. I mean, the games that I really like are games that you probably would never think of for the most part. But I think that even in hindsight, with my perspective from today, it really hasn't changed very much. I felt that the same issues that were prevalent at the time that nobody else seemed to care about were issues that I still have as I go back and I play these games today. And I just there's just not much that excites me on the N64 unless it's Track and Field 2000.
Ooh, I would say hit the Japanese only titles. There's some good ones in there. They kept it 2D.
No, but here's the deal: the N64, I think it gets over loved because it was the great and still is a fun. It's a party console. It's fun with your friends. You do GoldenEye, you do Mario Party, you do Smash, you do all those.
Those Mario Party games are phenomenal.
Yeah,
phenomenal.
Right. And you're never gonna take that away from it. But it's like outside of that small window of the multiplayer games and the wrestling games were good. Outside of that, yes, there are a few others, but to be honest, we all have to be like, okay, it really wasn't that good. And the overt love for it is just like, I think people trying to say they love something just because they know everyone else hates it. Jim.
What? It's like being a Mets fan. You know it's not the best, but you're a guy.
I'd rather people just be like, yeah, no, it is terrible, but I like terrible.
No, it's definitely the most overly loved nostalgically and also the most overly bashed in like modern like retro gaming these days too. There's like no fine line with it. It's not like, it's got a lot of problems, but it's some fun. It's just like, no, it's either shit or no, it's like great and you're stupid.
It definitely has some merit, and some of the games that I really appreciated back when the system was actually active was sports games for me. And but then again, that was maybe because of the PlayStation that actually kind of pulled me in, and then I kind of jumped off the PlayStation and got into the N64 because there was some interesting games on there that I wasn't able to find on the PlayStation. And I still think that a lot of those games actually hold up extremely well. And what's kind of interesting for me, which is, I don't think it's something I've ever really talked about before, but one of my favorite systems of all time is the GameCube. I probably have more hours playing the GameCube than almost any other console out there. And it's something I always intended to cover on my channel. I just never have. And one of the reasons I wanted to pick up a GameCube is because I started getting into the 64 a little bit more, and there was 3 games coming out, and then they canceled them and moved them to the GameCube, and that was Animal Forest, which is Animal Crossing, and then Cubivore, and then the other one was Dachshund the Giant, which never released in the US. So I went down, I picked up a GameCube day one, and before that I was a big Sony guy. I had all the Sony systems, Sega systems, and I had Sony systems, and I really never owned a Nintendo system. Early, at least, I typically, if I acquired one, it's because I traded something for it and got it for nothing. And that was kind of the deal. My brother had a Super Nintendo, and when I was like really young, I had saved up money with my sister, and we bought a regular Nintendo back in the 80s, and I had a stack of games for that system. And so it's not that I didn't love Nintendo, I just didn't feel like there was like any games that really spoke to me on the system, and I still kind of feel like that today. But I appreciate what they were doing because essentially they're kind of like 90s films where you take these science fiction films and you have this atrocious computer CG that looked incredible back in the 90s.
Yep.
But now you go back and you look at it 20 years or 30 years down the road and it just looks absolutely horrific, and the movie's unwatchable, and it absolutely just rips you out of the space. And the 64 is very similar in that regard. And they're not necessarily alone in that space. The Saturn has the same issues, and the PlayStation has the same issues with certain games. But I just felt like it was more the terribleness of it all was more pronounced on the 64, and there really was no getting away from it.
Yeah, and the controller. Let's not forget the controller.
Sir,
those C buttons.
Yeah. That's problems for sure. But yeah, like also we said earlier, like it's just a shame that the move away from 2D, because you look at a lot of the Japanese games on the Saturn or even something like Bangai-O on the N64, it's like, oh, this is what all these could have done with 2D. Oh, we really missed out, didn't we?
Yeah, and you look at some of the 3D games, like my favorite Sega Saturn game is Stellar Assault. SS, which is a sequel to the 32X game. And the game is absolutely incredible. It's one of the most gorgeous games on the system. It's fully voice acted by professional voice actors out of Japan. It never released outside of Japan, but like they had people that were on the Star Trek Next Generation voice acting on that game.
Wow.
So, I mean, and you had popular people that we wouldn't know over here, but you go and you look up their bios and they're actually in major films over there in Japan voice acting on that game. And the whole entire deal is incredible from top to bottom. The visuals, the music, the voice acting. It's like one of the best productions I've ever seen on a system. And I can't, you know, I'm sure that people are thinking like, Jenovi, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. But I can't think of anything similar on the 64. The cart really hampered that from happening.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And I have
amazing.
I have a feeling that cart, the whole entire idea behind the cart and them refusing to go to CD has something to do with the relationship with Sony and in that contract there. I don't think that you would have ever seen, I don't ever hear anybody ever talking about that, but to me, it's very clear when I looked into that there was an ironclad agreement between them and Sony, and that kind of forced their hand to continue to have this cart physical media until they're able to move on to something that was not CD based, and that was the mini DVDs with the GameCube.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably, I mean, knowing Nintendo the way we know them, especially Nintendo of Japan, it was definitely spite and a lot of the copyright protection that they have a boner for. But that's one thing I loved from your video about basically breaking down how the 32X and Saturn weren't failures in their day, like they were still profitable. But the conversation that the guy from Sony had with Sega when he's like, don't make this move to 3D and try to compete with us. We can make our own stuff in-house. You're not going to beat us. We're going to make all the profit. And I was like, man, I never even thought of it that way.
Yeah, in fact, Sega knew this. And Sony's like, hey, we're doing this, and we'd rather have you on board with us. Why don't you just sell the system? Well, I don't know what the deal was, but it was a fair deal. So they went to Tom Kalinske, and then they went to the people that were not the CEO of Sega at the time, but the people right underneath them, and they all looked at this deal and they said, hey, this is excellent. We need to do this deal for the next system. Let's get on board and partner with Sony. And then they took it to, I think it was, I'm trying to remember who was the president at the time. It was Nakayama or whoever it was. And he's like,
yeah,
nope, sorry. I don't care if you guys think it's all a great idea. We're not doing it. And that's really unfortunate because they had this great opportunity to kind of step it up. But it's kind of funny just how these things kind of come and go, and there's definitely a lot of opportunity for both. Well, not so much for Nintendo. That was a terrible deal. They really needed to step away from Sony. They didn't realize the deal that they were getting themselves into with Sony with that Nintendo PlayStation.
Yeah.
But Sega, on the other hand, though, yeah, it's just, and it's also kind of funny looking over at like the PS3 and the PS4 and the PS5, and really all these are just kind of off. Maybe not technically off the shelf parts, but technically they're not really being designed and manufactured in-house by Sony anymore. It's very much more akin to what Sega was doing in the mid-90s to build these systems.
No, it's when you hear about stories like that, it seems like too crazy, but it's funny because Jim and I talked about Xbox has recently been purchasing up a whole bunch of, AAA, not all AAA, but a few different game developers. But there was a story leaked, like, for a while there, like, Xbox is going to buy Sega. Xbox is going to buy this and that. And we laughed about it, but it's kind of like that same old hat where we said, would it be that bad of an idea if they did? Like, for Sega to go that route, because Xbox is clearly in this point where they're just going to keep churning it out, and if they can keep buying those type of companies, it just kind of makes sense after a certain point. Nintendo will always be a juggernaut, but still, I think, was it Xbox that also tried to do that to Nintendo too? Didn't they offer that?
Yeah, they got laughed out of the room back in the GameCube days, I think, when they were like just starting up.
Yeah, so but I can understand it, like, Nintendo is one of those, how they've handled some of their items and how they handle the fan service, unfortunately, has been terrible recently. But hopefully they never go down that, because I don't ever want to see Nintendo completely get flushed down the toilet. But it's one of those, you hear about these deals that do get offered, and if Sega did, who knows where they'd be right now if they went with Sony down that path.
Well, they definitely have some good properties, and one of my favorite games of all time or series is the Persona series, which they own. And I know another one that people really love. I haven't played it, but the Yakuza series.
Oh yeah,
they own that, and they have a lot of different properties that they own as well. A lot of IP that are just incredible that I don't think they really take advantage of as much as they should, and that's quite unfortunate. So, I mean, at this point, it's just a bunch of IPs, and a lot of the people that really were making the games that we truly loved are gone. So would it be so bad if they actually were acquired by Microsoft? Not necessarily, because I think that things just continue to go on. And at some point, somebody new needs to step to the plate, whether that's under a Sega umbrella, which is clearly not the same Sega that we were growing up with, because the Sega Sammy merger happened in the early 2000s. And that was essentially, the Dreamcast was the end of the old Sega in a lot of ways. And I think it makes a lot of sense. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with that?
Yeah, no, for definitely. But Jim, I did want to ask you before I have to run and grab another one.
Go on.
What did you start drinking this episode?
Well, Bri, I am drinking the Cric Nouveau, sour aged in oak casks with cherries. Comes to us from the Free Will Brewing Company. It's the 2017 edition of it. 6.9% alcohol by volume. Only 1,600 bottles of this were produced. And basically, it's a lot of French on the back here. Fruity and barrel-aged sour ale with cherries, blended up to 3-year-old vintages. Vibrantly red-hued, filled with abundant fruit notes and a complexity from long-term aging. This is your take on the classic Belgian Kriek. Enjoy by 2022. Haha, just in the nick of time.
You used to go straight from the bottle?
I should have been. Oh, well, we're actually doing a Buddies podcast tomorrow, and they run a beer channel mainly. I should have saved this for that and just drank it out of the bottle and give them all a stroke.
So, Jim, you're sticking with your family roots. I like it.
Son of a bitch. But it's actually funny with this, because the farther down the bottle I've gone, there's been like it started off like kind of somewhat clear and like, amberish. And at the bottom, it's just deep red and like milky, like all the sedimentation definitely like dropped to the bottom from all the cherries and all. So it's almost like two different tastes.
Is that something you can shake?
Could have given it a shot. And it was actually corked, so I'm sure if I shaked it, it would just like exploded in my kitchen the way it would have done with like champagne or something like that.
Well, I think we'd all pay to see that. Make sure you get on video.
Exactly.
Patreon.com, which I'll get to.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going with the Springhouse Brewing Company's From Helheim with Love. It's their hazy Indian Pale Ale with Simcoe, Citra, Mosaic, and Terry's Tears. I don't know what that means, but it's...
You don't want to know.
Yeah, 6.8%. Really cool looking can. I'm already done my first one, but as I showed, I actually tweeted out a picture of it and put it on our Instagram. It looks like every other hazy IPA, but the head on this thing was like almost seafoamish. It was like a thick layer of it that just would not dissipate no matter what I waited for. So I actually wiped it off, which I never do with my beers. Other than that,
violation.
Yeah. Other than that, it's can I say something positive? It's like most hazy IPA. Like it's nothing bad.
That's not a good comment.
No.
Can I say something positive?
Like.
Well, it's not crap.
It's like whenever you play a game and it's just very average. Like you don't know what else to say. You're like, it's not bad. It just doesn't do anything spectacular. But if you want a hazy IPA and you like this can, then I would say go with it. How about you, Sean? What do you got there?
Just water. I just
water.
Have a water bottle. Nothing spectacular on my end.
Oh, someone doesn't want a headache at work tomorrow. Yeah.
I will say that bottle did look like a custom Budweiser can for a second.
This is I've had it for a while. It's called Path Water.
Okay.
And it's just like a metal container that had water in it when I bought it, and I just keep on refilling it. So
nice.
There you go. Now, have you ever imbibed it all, or are you just like not a big drinker in general?
I don't drink at all. So
okay, no problem.
I'm probably the only person with a retro gaming channel that does not drink because I have quite a few friends in the community, and I'll go out with them. Like we'll go to Portland or whatnot, and all those guys are getting smashed. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I could be designated driver if you guys need. I'm just here to chill. I don't drink, but I'm cool with you guys doing what you need to do.
Okay, he can be the one who can hold my leash next time we're at a convention. I tend to wander.
Yeah. But speaking of, I'm going to real quick go grab my next beer. So hold on, I will be right back. All right. So, Jim, what do we have from our Patreons this week?
Well, Brian, at patreon.com/DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, where for as little as $2 measly per month, you can ask a question we will answer on each and every single one of these Power Hour podcasts. So, only one question this week, and it wasn't my fault. I put out many reminders. It wasn't my freaking fault this time. But
Still your fault.
yeah, it always is. But it's from our good buddy Gamer Astral, and he says, "Have you ever considered starting a new channel, maybe a side project from DVPG or Jenovi?" So, yeah, I mean, see, Brian, you already have a couple side projects going on.
I mean, yeah, but they're completely... I will never put time into a channel like I do this one. Like, me and my wife have a podcast, but I didn't turn it into a YouTube channel. It's strictly just a podcast. We talk about, horror things. I have a horror YouTube channel, but that is so... It takes hobby to a different level. It's like if I get time every couple months, I'll throw together a video. And that's one where Jim knows one thing I love is making lists.
Oh, yeah.
It's my excuse to just put together a list of like favorite horror movies of this or favorite that. It's just for pure fun. It's not meant for like trying to get eyeball. So that's just an escape to do that thing. But outside of that, it's like, no, after putting the work we do into this, thinking about restarting and trying to do another project channel, maybe when I'm like 60 and have some time. But yeah, I don't think anytime soon.
Time? What's that? Well, me and you have the disadvantage of having the 3 and 4 year olds, where at least Sean kids are a little older, so they don't have to take up quite as much attention in the day to day.
Hey, that's where you're wrong. That is where you're wrong.
Oh God, it never ends.
School and high school ages. Only when they're out of the house.
Yeah, because then you got sports and other activities that just now you got to go practice and you got to do this, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the reality of the situation. When they're 5 and 6 years old, not a big deal. Just they sleep in, run into the room, record your show. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Jim? Did you any thoughts?
I don't know. If this was a couple years ago, I maybe would have done a wrestling channel, but I just don't care about any of it anymore. Maybe it would be fun to have like almost like I like local sports, so maybe almost have like a live stream show, almost like a call-in like actual radio show, where I can just sit there and bitch about how terrible Philly sports is day after day, year after year, season after season of mediocrity and 2 championships and 150 years worth of seasons during my lifetime, but that's beyond the point. But yeah, maybe just something along those lines, or hell, with my recent addiction to stocks, I can still enjoy the joy of looking at numbers that never go up day after day. It's so healthy.
Oh man,
it's so healthy.
What about you, Sean? Has there ever been like another avenue you want to explore for YouTube or like create another channel?
I don't know about another channel necessarily. I definitely have considered, kind of the same idea and concept that I do on my channel and broadening that out to maybe non-game related items. But I don't think it's ever going to happen. Probably. Hold on. What's up, Ezra? I know. Ezra, I'm on the show right now. Ezra. Do you want to say hi real quick? Oh. Sorry, it's my son. So
No, okay. Hold on, let me do a quick clap. God.
All right, yeah. So for me, I think that the only thing that would really make sense is a new show that strictly covered retro games and gaming related stuff that's happening now, because I don't think it's really any solid source for that. stuff that would be talking about new games on old systems and some of these new arcades units that are coming out that are showcasing these older games and whatnot. I don't think it's something I'd ever really do because I don't really have the time. All my time actually goes into my show if I have free time. But I always felt like there's like a need for that because I'm really interested in that stuff. I'm interested in what's coming out in the Vectrex, who has new homebrews going on for the 5200. And, unless you're like really plugged into those communities, it's super easy to miss out on some of that stuff and then miss the pre-orders and then you can't even get the game anymore. And, yeah, that would be the deal. If I was going to do another show, it would require having other people on board to cover stuff, but it would be essentially like a 10-minute weekly roundup news show that covered anything that was going on in the retro gaming sphere that was gaming related for these older systems.
That would be a really... I like that idea a lot because I have seen those homebrews, and yeah, the number that get produced, and you don't know what's out there. This is one, and I know some people are a little adverse to it, but this is where I think emulation has its value because if you find out there's a game and you just weren't into there and you want to try it out, like I'm sure they're available on who knows however many different libraries, but that would be really awesome because I've seen some homebrews and they're really, really well done and they're faithfully done too. Like there was a lot of Castlevania ones and that was one of my favorite series as a kid. And some of them are hard as anything, but some of them look like a legit. They came from Konami. The sound was great. I like that. That is a really interesting idea because if you're someone who has just a really, you're tied to those old systems and you don't really want to get into the new ones, that could be a good alternative.
Yeah, I mean, I pick up a lot of these, I call them aftermarket games. I try to stay away from the term homebrew unless it's just somebody who's a hobbyist, but a lot of these titles are so polished that like a game like Tanglewood or Paprium where you have actual professionals working behind the scenes on these games and then you get into like I mentioned the Vectrex, which is kind of sitting over here to the side for me, but it's one of my favorite. I don't know if you guys can even see it, but it's one of my
I can Jim wants a Vectrex.
Yeah, it's one of my all-time favorite systems. And there's probably at least 2 to 3 new games coming out for that system every single year, but good luck knowing about them and actually getting any kind of information before the pre-order time runs out on this stuff. And the Vectrex isn't exclusive to that. It's just the one that I think of, that in 5200. And to have a resource that really kind of just filled people in and be like, oh, hey, here's a new game that was just announced. It was like, there is games all the time to go up on Kickstarter for these systems. And then all of a sudden I'm hearing about a game. It's like, oh, hey, Jenovi, did you hear about this game is coming out? I'm like, oh, man, I want that. And I go over there. It's like, Kickstarter already ended. How in the hell am I going to get it? And it's,
right.
So yeah.
Well, it's funny because unless you have a YouTuber who's actually like say in a company like Gamester 81 with Collector Vision, like unless you have a guy who's like actively promoting the games he's working on and stuff like that, now you're supposed to know until it's after the fact, like you're saying.
Yeah, it's always after the fact, right? There's really nobody, for the most part, covering any of this stuff in any meaningful way in one place. And, if they do, it's typically, they're connected to the project in some way, or it's a friend of theirs or something.
Yeah.
But I have found that to be a real issue. And, if I could actually get people that would be willing to come on board with me on something like that, I would definitely start a channel that actually put up a weekly video and probably cover some of the Sega stuff myself or split it between a guy like myself and there's a friend of mine named Stika who's really into these aftermarket games. He buys almost every single one on a Sega system that comes out, and his channel is mainly reviews for these games now. It's mainly a review channel, but yeah, it's an issue. It definitely is an issue if you're into this stuff because it's so gate-kept essentially, and getting inside those gates to kind of figure out what's going on before it's too late, it's oftentimes impossible.
Now, do you feel like the communities around them almost like hoard them to make sure that like the word doesn't get out there so they can make sure they get theirs before it goes out, or is it just a luck of the draw kind of thing, do you think?
I think it's a luck of the draw kind of deal. It's kind of like there's a company called Pico Interactive, and I feel like Pico Interactive is a company that needs to hire a PR person and stay off of the internet because they're just absolutely detrimental to the work that they're doing.
Yeah, they are.
They are their own worst enemy is probably the best way to put it. And I think a lot of these people, they just don't really know how to get word out in a proper way, and they'll do these like little side projects, and it just ends up only reaching the people that are within shouting distance a lot of times. So they'll be on some obscure website or like I think that the Virtual Boy is really interesting because there's so many neat projects come out on that. But if you're not in the I think it's called Virtual Boy Planet forums, then when something is announced and you miss it by a week or two, you're not going to ever get it again. You know, it's just it's like, okay, like if you want it, put your name in here, and then all of a sudden it's like, for a guy like me, I don't visit those forums very often. I don't have no reason to. I might pop in there like once every couple months. Same with like Sega 16, and I'm a big Sega guy. You know, I might pop in there like a couple times a year. So all the time it's like you pop over there and you see it's like, okay, well, somebody took pre-orders here, and but it closed. It opened and it closed between the time that I last visited, and I think that's generally the issue, is that people live in one area, and that's where everything happens. And if you don't have somebody plugged into that area that's going and checking that out every single day, you know, thankfully now for like Virtual Boy stuff, I kind of have like a go-to person, which is Candy. She has a channel called Candy's Classic Game Shrine, and she covers Virtual Boy stuff. She's like really passionate about it. So you have a new Virtual Boy cart coming out, a flash cart, and she just covered that on her channel. I would have never known about it beyond that, you know? So. Right. But that comes back to the problem, though. She covers Virtual Boy stuff almost exclusively on her channel, and I'm plugged into that channel. But if you're not plugged into her channel, where else are you going to hear about new Virtual Boy stuff coming out, even if you like the system? You know, that requires you actually living on Planet Virtual Boy forums. And that's just not realistic for a lot of people, especially if you have a wide range of interests as far as gaming systems go or video games go. And I think a lot of people do.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's actually, not to backtrack a little bit, but it's funny you mentioned like Pico Interactive's their PR and like their social media, because they remind me a lot of like Polymega last year. Just like constantly, with their online presence of just shooting themselves in the foot. And like Pico, like I have a couple of their games, and you know, they're all right. Like, you know, for being unreleased games or like kind of homebrewish stuff that they're releasing, or stuff that was meant to be ported that never got an official release. But like I saw them in an argument with like Voltar and like Bob Retro RGB and stuff like that crew, and I'm just like, oh no dude, like I'm seeing the way he's trying to defend like the old releases and stuff like that, and I'm just like, you're not gonna win this battle, man.
Yeah, you know, like they have multiple issues that people are pointing out, that, you know, like the boards are too thick, so it actually damages the pins. They had some, and I'm not, you know, I'm like a farm boy, so I don't understand circuitry necessarily, but you know, there's some circuitry issues that could cause internal damage to the console itself, and you know, these are all legitimate problems, and they're having people reach out in good faith to share their concerns, and then those people are in turn being attacked, and that is a problem. And it's interesting that you bring up like the Polymega deal, because when that was all announced, it was called like Retro Blocks or whatever it was originally announced as, and I thought, man, this is like the biggest scam of all time. And and funny enough, a bunch of my friends in the Southern California retro game scene actually knew these guys. And they said, no, man, I seen it. It's not a scam, Jenovi. But these guys are just completely incompetent on running any kind of social media or actually dealing with the public. That's the problem. And that's completely the problem more often than not. These people don't know how to interact with the public and how to actually run, you know, it's like if you actually go to a good restaurant, a lot of the times the chef actually owns the restaurant and he's not the front of the house all the time, you know? So they actually hire somebody who's the front of the house who is personable, knows how to interact with the public, and knows how to present stuff. And it's again and again in the gaming sphere, though, you find that it is the people that should least be dealing with people in the social sense that are taking over those avenues, like Fonzie from Watermelon. You know, absolutely a brilliant person, and I don't hold no ill will towards the man whatsoever. I never thought that the game wasn't coming out. I had a lot of faith in it. I felt that there's probably problems behind the scene. I never canceled it. I got my game. You know, people are upset with him, but he's somebody that should never be in front of a camera. He's somebody that should not have any kind of control over their social media. He's not, because every time they open their mouth, they end up causing more damage to their brand, and they don't ever help their cause, no matter how well intentioned any of it is.
Yeah, and he's almost like, he tries to do that thing where he's like jokey trolly and almost making a joke out of it, but it's like, dude, your game's delayed by 4 years. Like, it's not what people want to hear right now. Like, now's not the time. Like that kind of deal. Yeah, he's almost like a savant in a way, but he just like he's missing that one little like circuit right there for like just to be able to read the room kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean that's
a reason every.
Now, were you as shocked as everyone else when you just randomly had that package at your door with Paprium in it?
No, I mean when they started shipping it, I guess I was shocked when they started shipping it because they had just kind of gone dark and we didn't know what was happening necessarily. But we know. Well, I say we. It's like myself and a group of friends that kind of cover this stuff. I did like this documentary maybe 4 years ago called Why We Create, and this was before a lot of games came out that are kind of like big now, like Xenocrisis and Tanglewood. And I reached out to a lot of these guys that were developing these games, and I got them on board, and I actually did these really lengthy, kind of off the record interviews with these guys. And Fonzie was the one guy that never returned any of my correspondence at all, like none of Watermelon. It was just nothing. And so it was interesting because I get like these gosh dang it, I'm just having a complete brain fart with these guys' names right now. But the guy behind Tanglewood, his name's Matt. I can't remember his last name. And then
yeah. From Big Evil or whatever.
Yeah, and then the guy behind Xenocrisis, and his name is Mike.
I just know him as the bitmap guy. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure. And then I reached out to the people that did the Titan demo. Have you seen that?
No, I don't know about that one.
The Titan demo team. You should look that up. That's that's some of the most incredible work I've ever seen on a Mega Drive. But there's a team from Europe called the Titan demo team, and they made these 2 demos for the Mega Drive, which are like showcases of the hardware and what can actually be achieved. I'll send you over some links after.
Were they the ones who did that like blast processing, like still image that like completely used a color palette and everything at once, or was that someone else?
That's probably somebody else. They're I believe that their deal is called Overdrive 1 and 2, if I'm remembering.
Were
correctly.
they the ones that were like showing how ridiculous the sound channels could be? Or was that someone else?
There's
so many people who are just tinkering with all this stuff. So
yeah, these are people that actually created full-on tech demos and then took them to these competitions because this is like kind of a popular deal. This is actually something once COVID lifts, I would love to buy a ticket and go over there and actually start covering the demo scene in a dedicated video. That'd be like a dream of mine, is covering the Amiga demo scene, and then how a lot of these Amiga guys actually came over and bled into the Mega Drive scene. And you actually have this big demo scene. And the demo scene isn't about gameplay necessarily. It's about actually putting together like these visual representations and musical representations that are, it's like a cohesive piece of art from start to end. They're not necessarily interactive, it's just completely showcasing what the system can do through a piece of fully compiled and organized art and that is visually in both audio.
Nice. That would be really cool to see, because I didn't know those type of things happen with that. But yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like for someone who does want to stick to his channel, it sounds like you have a lot of good ideas for other stuff too. Covering all these other items. But I can't even remember, Jim. Who asked us that question?
Oh, for other channels? Astral.
Yeah. Astral. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
Good
Astral.
question.
Hopefully that wasn't too long of a segment for you.
Hey, he's making me play Donkey Kong 64. He can wait.
Poor Brian. If it wasn't for my damn motion sickness, oh boy.
Yeah.
No, that is one thing I've learned with these old games. Some of them, if the camera's a little too snappy or foggy or blah 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 blah, oh dude, it wrecks me. It tears me up. It's bad.
That's Jim's hardships right now. Motion sickness in video games.
Panzer Dragoon was doing that to me too. That hard snapping camera, man, it was wrecking me a little bit. I could get through like a couple levels, and then after like the 4th level, I'd be sitting there going, "Ooh."
Hey
right,
Jim,
put
you
this
know what I
away.
have to say to that? Wah.
That's nicer than what you normally say.
Well, I figured that Jim needs to just start his own religious group. 2D only is what it's called, and they don't recognize
Never have a
anything
problem.
3D. Yeah,
Never have a problem.
2D only and the worst of the worst.
Oh, dare. Actually, you're right. I'd have more fun doing that than a lot of other things. Oh, there's a thing for all my motion stick buddies out there. I'll make that'll be my side channel. Games that won't get you messed up, or games to stay away from, and I just get sick on camera every episode.
Damn it, Jim.
What can I sell my dignity for views more?
new channel name: Glorious and Boring.
Oh, that's perfect. It like sums me up. It's a TLDR.
Jim, stop using that. I hate that you use that.
What? Too long didn't read? What?
Yeah, stop.
I have precious
Stop
little
using-
time, Brian. I have to condense.
You're
I have to
using
get the most out of my
abbreviations like you're a
240
high
characters.
schooler right now. You're way out of that league. Just text like the old man you are.
Brian, I have to lie to the masses.
You gotta be hip. You're gonna start vaping soon.
Now.
Oh, no, but thank you, Astral. We do appreciate the question. And yeah, everyone who does listen, who does support us, we definitely appreciate. But please make sure, get in your questions, because we love interacting with you guys.
Oh yeah, for sure. Get your money's worth out of us, because God knows we don't deserve it. So please, send everything your way. And there's some $5 patrons, too, who haven't put their game review request in. So, like, I had one who was like, oh, you already did the games I would have requested. I'm like, well, request something else. Torture us. I don't care.
Just don't do 64 games.
Probably shouldn't have said that.
I know.
Right, you fool.
So Sean, we usually cover a few different little, like, just recently released articles or gaming things. And I don't know if you saw this article that came out from Jezebel.com. But this person, what's her name? Shannon Malero wrote an article that said, "Who forgot to invite Chun-Li to the Mortal Kombat?"
Chun-Li? What the fuck?
Yeah. Jim, that's not the issue here. The issue is this article. So, I don't know if you saw, Sean, Jim and I were actually talking before the podcast. The new Mortal Kombat trailer's out for the new movie. And this person, who is a gamer, legitimately wrote a whole article about, like, yeah, it looks good, but why are they not including Chun-Li in there? And then had to write an amendment basically saying, I didn't realize Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat weren't the same thing. Like,
That's a little.
It boggles. I have no idea what Jezebel does. I had like what they cover. They seem to cover everything from politics, culture, books, history. So they're I guess a catch-all for online news. And man, like, I don't know. Does she not have an editor? Like, how does that get passed without anyone looking?
They all have an editor. Was she like? Were they sitting at a board going, oh, someone's got to talk about the Mortal Kombat movie. All right, who's ever played a video game before? And she's the poor sap who went, oh, I've played this before. And no one's like, well, it's your job now.
You know, maybe the purpose is to put out an article that gets people talking by throwing something that's not completely accurate out there. It's kind of controversial. How can you mistaken one of the most iconic Street Fighter characters as being in the wrong game?
I mean, they didn't take it down.
They didn't take it down, views. But also, I almost, the way it's been written, like her follow up was, it's almost written in a way like she is self-deprecating, realizing like, I think I did screw up here. And then if you go on her Twitter, like, she's getting roasted left and right, and she seems to be eating it up. But I think, like, if you look at her other articles, she doesn't do things in jest to this degree. So I don't know if it is if it is a troll. Hey, it is a funny troll. It got the job done. It has people like, is it serious? But I mean, there's a difference between a troll that's like a playful troll and one that right away people are like, they're not going to all of a sudden now start reading other Jezebel articles because of something like that. So
I think I got to figure it out. Here's the deal, okay? This gal, she picks up Mortal Kombat 1. She's played it. She picked up Street Fighter 2. Just seen her brothers playing it. Maybe some friends. It was mainly like Ken and Guile. Okay, she never sees Chun-Li in there. She finally gets herself the Street Fighter 2, the movie game, on a system. Now, she doesn't own it, but she goes over to a friend's house and she's playing this, and she gets to be Chun-Li on this game. Now, she doesn't realize that this is actually Street Fighter because she's never seen Chun-Li before, but she sees this is the digitized graphics from her Mortal Kombat 2 game, and she figures that she's actually playing Mortal Kombat 2. And you know, this is a mistake that can happen to anybody. You're playing Street Fighter 2, the movie, the game, and you mistake it
in 2021
for Mortal Kombat too. You know, it's looks the same, right? Why is this girl not in here? I know I played as her before.
So, Sean, I think we now know your next channel, and it's Jenovi, the video game lawyer. Just taking up the battles. That's, yeah, you're giving her lots of credit. I think either it is the obvious troll or it is just the massive blunder that got a lot of heat, and they're like, we're leaving it up there because now it's hilarious.
Oh yeah, now it's just good ad revenue coming in.
Yeah, so it's hard to take something down and lose that ad revenue, isn't it?
That's right. And no attention's bad attention. See, Bri, here's what my theory is. I think she's a me, because just like when I did my little stupid angry Super Mario tweet about, oh, I can't get under this stupid thing. You know, this game's designed terribly, not knowing I couldn't slide. Oops. And then just going, oops, well, I fucked up. Let me just ride this out and enjoy the attention. So,
did you get a lot of attention on that one?
Not as much as I was expecting. It was like shooting up for a little bit and then it stopped. And I was like, oh, thank God. It didn't hit like the 5,000 retweet mark or anything like that. It hit like 100 likes and all that. But every bashing was just like, it was well deserved.
That's an honest mistake, though, because you get used to mechanics from newer games. And it's like going back to this Gizmondo deal. I'm playing Sonic on Gizmondo, and I haven't like played Sonic 1 in a long time, but I've recently played Sonic 3, so I'm kind of expecting these Sonic 3 mechanics to be there. Mm-hmm. They're not there. They never were there, you know? So it's a little bit of a letdown, and it's like, why can't I do this? Oh yeah, this is Sonic 1. That's why.
Jim, but see, the problem is...
But she wrote it arrogantly the way I did, though. That's why I'm saying she pulled a me.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, and I said that is the one curse of Twitter in general, but that's what this article feels like. It feels like a really long Twitter rant. Like, it feels like she was just doing a stream of consciousness.
That's probably the case.
Yeah, but just did it in article form, and it's like, I'm sure she's probably just young and grew up kind of on Twitter, and all thoughts are kind of done, and it kind of gives credence to, like, do a little more research. Do like Jenovi in his videos. Take some time, look up some things, realize Chun-Li is not in Mortal Kombat. But yeah, Jim, your tweet, it just infuriated me because I was like...
Because you know me too well.
I know you too well, and I told you the problem with your tweet was, it's fine, everyone makes mistakes, but... You're not humble in writing. You're like so righteous. You're like, God, this creator's an asshole. He doesn't know what he's doing. How could he not put this in here? It was so...
Howard Phillips was right to give us Doki Doge?
You went so hard in the paint on this, and I was like... And then I was so happy to see everyone else roast you, so I didn't...
Yes.
But I was just like...
We've revisited this enough.
It's never enough, Jim.
I
mean, this isn't the first mistake you made. Like
Won't be the last.
Which is better, right, Jim? Or no, overrated, underrated. That's right.
That one I'm still never going to forgive myself for.
So... Yeah, so...
Go ahead, Brian.
No, Sean. So I don't know. Like I said, we always do our reoccurring, like, overrated, underrated. We'll pick a topic or a game, and we go back and forth kind of jokey with each other sometimes. Like, I'll purposely pick, like, one of his favorite games, and we'll do devil's advocate. Like, one of us has to be overrated. Even if you don't believe it, you have to say why it's overrated or underrated. So Jim knows my favorite game is Resident Evil. And he's setting me up to say, why is it overrated? And he's supposed to give the argument of underrated. And he starts off his argument, and he starts listing all the reasons why it's overrated. And by the end of it, I was like, well, Jim, I think you just answered everything for me. He's like,
I had that moment realization where I was like, it's like my one chance.
He just wanted to win the argument once, and he screwed the pooch.
I did the Babe Ruth point, and then the bat went flying out of my hands and hit a little kid in the first aisle.
Oh, Jim. But yeah, no, that article, it is linked below. You guys read it for yourselves. You let us know what you think. But it does tie into yet another topic that Jim loves, and it's his hashtag GamersMad. So, Jim, why don't you explain what this latest little wrath of tweets and anger is about?
Yeah, it's about a week old at this point, but at the so Fortnite, the biggest game in the world, as we all know, especially anyone with kids or with cousins or anyone you know in a certain age range. This might actually be good for you, Jenovi, depending on if they play or not. But Chun-Li and Ryu from Street Fighter were added to Fortnite, and I didn't put any specific threads in here. You can just search it, and you'll get flooded with different threads of just people freaking the hell out over, this is ridiculous, they're ruining Street Fighter, they're ruining these characters, this is goofy, they would never make sense in this universe, and stuff like that. So,
A flying,
of course,
a universe with a flying bus.
That's held up by balloons, and you can build a base to the sky. Yes,
yeah, and you can build a tower in 2 seconds, because everyone knows who's in construction knows how easy it is to just throw things together. But yeah.
But a Hadouken, that is too far, sir. Or Ryu and Chun-Li. But I actually love the pictures of Ryu and Chun-Li holding like machine guns and stuff like that. I'm like, this is funny. It's so like out of left field, but yeah, I just love it when gamers get ridiculously mad over such non-issues, and I'm just like, you guys do realize that the general masses really doesn't care about Street Fighter right now, and this is a great way to bring new eyes into it. But no. Be mad about this.
Yeah, there's definitely, for me, if the game is doing something that I don't care about or care for, I move away from it. And I think a really good example for myself personally was Super Smash Brothers on the Switch, and even prior to that on the Wii U, because it was like one of my favorite games on the GameCube, and I even like the Wii version. But man, it gets so overloaded with characters recently. I just feel like you can't keep up with them unless you just absolutely just dedicate your life to playing the game, and you get to learn how to interact with all the different characters. And and when there becomes too much of an option, it just becomes a little bit too overwhelming for the amount of time that I have, and I'm just no longer really interested in playing. But it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing that's happening, because people are obviously enjoying it. And it's just one of those deals that when you're crapping in somebody else's iced tea, I don't know if that's really so kosher, because everybody likes what they like, and just move on, find something else.
Bri, give me your tea.
Damn it, Jim. No, I mean, that game has had it, because it is such a success. It's had all the Marvel characters. It's had Master Chief from Halo.
They have Alien coming in now. They've had everything. So
it's, like Jim said.
They didn't have a giant rapping Eminem at one point?
No, it was, oh my goodness.
These are just all skins, right?
Yeah. All it is, it's a
the giant rapper is actually like in the background, is like, he was like the size of a mountain, just like
he was
rapping along and stuff.
Yeah, he was,
a little weird. Can't remember now.
Was it Lil Nas X? I can't remember who it was, but either way, no, what kills me is just like, why get upset about anything that gets exposure, especially if you love Street Fighter, like Jim said. Right now, like, nobody's talking except for the diehards for Street Fighter. So if this gets a little heat and maybe it leads to another Street Fighter game, why is that bad? Like, would you two ever get mad if all of a sudden they threw Sonic in Fortnite? Because you don't want to see Sonic with a gun? It's like, no. Like, why would you care? It just wouldn't make sense. So,
well, yeah, like Sean, you being the old school Smash fan, like when they said Minecraft Steve was going in Smash, did you care at all, or were you like morally offended that the sanctity of the anime characters with swords game, as it's turned into, decide to put the most popular character from the most popular game of all time into it?
No. Well, I think Smash is probably a little bit of a different deal here, because you're talking cosmetics versus, obviously when you're introducing new characters, it's changing the gameplay mechanics, and to a certain degree, because you kind of get used to how certain characters operate, and if you're always picking the same character, then you have all these new characters to learn, and who to pick against them, and there's a whole litany of things to just be able to enjoy the game. And I just find that like a game like Smash is incredible in its own right, but it just becomes too big for me to properly enjoy it, and I think that's kind of a problem. But when you're talking like skins and whatnot,
why care?
It's like, who cares? And even for Smash, people are getting upset about this character or that character coming to Smash, and for me, it's like that's kind of exciting in a lot of ways. The only problem for me is that, like I said, it's just ends up being too big of a selection, too many variables, and that makes it to where maybe not necessarily a bad game, but it just requires so much more time, and I just don't have it available, and it's just not worth playing anymore.
Yeah, Smash had the opposite issue, I felt like. Whereas, like, Fortnite, the issue is I think they're including too many skins from random, and like Jim said, the quote unquote sanctity of a video game is funny. But with Smash, because it is a dedicated character, it's a new play style, it's something you have to learn. A lot of people I think just complain, they're like, you're going a little too much into deep cuts when you still haven't hit on some of the majors from your bigger titles. Like, stop giving us Fire Emblem, people. You have enough of those. Like, why not give us this or this? So yeah, it's like almost that opposite where they're like just mad that they didn't get a more popular character. You're going a little too obscure with that one.
Well, with Steve, it was like everyone was mad that they were like, "Oh, what's this normie trash doing in here?" It's like, I thought this was supposed to be a celebration of like video game history and mascots and shit like that. Like,
Yeah.
why would you not want him in here?
Because they need more Game and Watch, Jim.
Hey, you leave Mr. Game and Watch out of this. He is a treasure.
Yeah, yes, he is.
He is so damn fun.
Yeah, my mains were Game and Watch and Princess Peach. But I always I was always sure to put her in the Daisy costume though.
Yeah.
Well, obviously. Come on now.
Jim was always Ice Climbers.
No. Oh, God. They are the worst. No one likes the game. No one likes playing as them. I don't know why they're there. Stupid black box.
Jim, you just loved when I would be Samus and just shoot you with the ball.
And he wouldn't even charge you. It would just be like, P-shot, P-shot, P-shot,
Yep.
P-shot. And just, all of a sudden I'm up to like 120 damage. I'm like, God damn it, just let me touch you.
Stop shooting me.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, just dodge it. Just dodge it.
So many good
Pew,
times with
pew,
those games.
pew.
Yep. Yeah, no, but you do have a great point. I do feel myself, with the lack of time, when I get into newer games I love, and there are so many options, on one hand, there's that brain in me that's like, man, as a kid, this would have been every weekend, every chance I got. But now I'm like, I don't have the time. It almost feels like I don't even want to touch it because I'm not going to even scratch the surface of what I could do in this game. So, yeah, I could see where in certain games adding too much would be a bad thing. But for Fortnite, who cares? They're going to just have skins, so people just...
Yeah, it's free to play, so I mean they have to make their money somewhere. And they're making bucket loads of it anyways. But
All
I
of
mean, I mean that's kind of beside the point. It's I think it's probably the more appropriate way. With Smash, I also get kind of frustrated because here's a game that essentially came out years ago, and they're still releasing new DLC, which means that you're spending. I don't know how many packets have come out, but yeah, buckets of money to keep up to date so you can actually check out some of these new characters and make sure you're kind of getting familiar with them from outside of an online setting. And I just become frustrated with the experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Oh, I never touch online. Ooh.
Rightfully so. Yeah, that's for sure. Now, but kind of connected. We hit on this earlier about specific companies and their IPs, and this is one that I was a little shocked to hear. Jim, you actually got this from Bloody Disgusting, and it's amazing. Like this one actually covered it because this was the first non-gaming related thing I've seen come from here. But Konami is outsourcing Metal Gear and Castlevania IP to third-party developers. Now, they've been kind of playing around with this, it seems like, with Silent Hill, as they're already like kind of have some potential new Silent Hill games on the books. But yeah, we've said for a while, like, we know they went downhill with what was those like games they were trying to release a year or two ago?
Pachinko machines?
The Pachinko,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then they did release a Metal Gear Solid game that was just absolute trash here about a year or two ago.
Metal Gear Survive. Yep.
Yeah,
which is like a zombie survival game or something. It's like, what?
Well, it just sucks because Konami is... You talk about hitters and games that just couldn't miss back in the day. And then whatever happened I'm not sure, but their IPs have suffered and haven't been able to get the proper treatment. And it's like,
Well, it's clear what happened. They found that there was actually a lot more money to be made in the amusement division than in their home consumer division. So a lot of those properties were repurposed for the amusement division and into these essentially gambling machines, because that's where the money was for them. And it's not to say that there wasn't some money over on the other end, but there's just so much more money on that amusement division than there was on the home division. And I think it's kind of unfortunate because they do have some incredible properties, and they're kind of giving them, and it's no offense to my friend Yahel or the CDI, I love the CDI, I love Yahel, but they're giving them the Philips CDI Nintendo treatment, where they're shipping these properties off to people that probably shouldn't be touching them, and we're likely not going to see any good results from this.
yeah, no, absolutely.
You had that Contra Rogue Core. You had the Metal Gear Survive. It's been rough.
But it seems like, once again, with the Silent Hill, hopefully we have new projects coming out, and the Metal Gear and Castlevania are getting more and more. And I feel like, the Castlevania, that even having the thing on Netflix has reopened the door for like, hey, like this is a franchise people like. Bloodstained is doing so popular because it's basically a Castlevania clone. There's still an audience and an appetite out there for it. Give it to someone who really wants to take it and develop it right. But take the time, like you said. Don't just give it to somebody and make the quick bang for the buck. Give it to somebody who cares. Silent Hill, the number of times it's mind-boggling that friggin' PT ends up on lists for like best horror game when it was a 10-minute demo on the PS4 that nobody can play anymore.
I still got my copy.
Damn it! But the amount that spawned, and just that 10 minutes that spawned however many games that just took that same exact style, like people are really clamoring for. Let's get another Silent Hill. Let's get another Castlevania. Let's get another Contra. Let's get these things out there. I really hope that comes out there.
I do think that I think that the likelihood of that happening is slim to none. And I feel like Sonic, and this is probably going to be a very unpopular opinion, especially for anybody who follows my show, because I don't think I've really shared this before, but I kind of feel like Sonic post Saturn, and I do include the Saturn games as being just fine. So on the Dreamcast forward, it's pretty much crap. I never liked the Dreamcast games. I didn't like anything that's come out. And the first time I actually picked up a Sonic game where I felt it was a return to form was Mania. And Mania was never planned by Sega. It was a fan game. And somebody showed it to Sega, and Sega had some freaking common sense for once, and they actually picked it up and put it out. Thank goodness on that, right? And it's going to be something similar, because you just hand it off to somebody who has some sort of half-cocked idea. And with a game like Castlevania, and I'm not like no big Castlevania mark. I don't know a whole lot about it. I mean, I played Castlevania games. So it's not like at the top of my deal where I know a bunch of stuff. But I do know that starting with the TurboGrafx 16, which would be Rondo of Blood,
Yep.
you actually had new people come on and take over that series, and those people are the people that are doing Bloodstain, and they pretty much had their hand in every single game that came out until they were no longer with Konami, right? And it's the same deal with like Resident Evil, where you had essentially like a lot of the same team and people in the creative team behind it all the way through until they were no longer with Konami, right? And so when you actually strip away these creative forces that are actually driving the games in the proper directions, and then you just hand them off to somebody who's just trying to meet quotas of deadlines, we got to get this done by this time and make sure this is working by this time, and make sure we keep this within this price and do this within this, and here's this milestone. And the only thing that matters is that you meet this milestone, because if you meet this milestone, you get this bonus, and we don't really care about nothing else. And that's exactly what happens to a lot of these properties. I'm not saying that's what happened to Sonic. I'm just saying that I don't like the direction that it went, and what came with the Dreamcast isn't what I loved. And I think that there's definitely a possibility of that happening with these, because you really kind of have to step outside of the box and go with a studio that actually has people that are passionate about these properties already. And I think like one of the cases where we really seen this actually take off was back in the Dreamcast, where you had Metroid taken over by Retro Studios, and they did an incredible job. They revived that series that had been gone for a whole entire generation, and they put out 3 of the best games on that platform. And so it's critical to find somebody who has passion and ideas for a new direction, and it's just not about here's a license, what will you give us for it? Okay, go ahead and do it, and then you end up with that Metal Gear. What did you call that again? Rise,
Survive.
Cow Pie, or whatever it was called. So I mean, it's like
Metal Gear Rising Revengeance is actually pretty good for a spinoff, but yeah, even though it's like Devil May Cry and Metal Gear universe, it's goofy, but yeah, it's not like what Survive was. Oof.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm encouraged. I hope they do the right thing here. I hope it turns out well. I'm a big Konami fan, so it's any news that's heading in the right direction, I'll be happy for. But it will be a story we'll end up following to hopefully at least we start seeing some releases, if any, come out. Either way.
oh, I kept on saying Resident Evil. I meant to say Silent Hill.
No, I got you.
So excuse me on that because Capcom has actually been knocking it out of the park with their properties lately, and you really have to applaud the work that they're doing. And so I would never want to throw Capcom under the bus because I feel that is the direction Konami should be going. And that was just me misspeaking, which I often do when I'm live.
No, it's fine. No, Capcom, yeah, man, They've done what the movie studios have figured out. Like you do a good remake of your old properties and do it well and introduce it to a new crowd. It's gonna be a very wise decision because the lore's there. You're gonna get old fans, new fans. It's a great idea. If Konami could do that somehow, that would be great too. But yeah, Jim. Speaking of things we grew up with and are getting a kind of second win because we just talked about this. I think it was it last podcast or one before?
It was recent.
Yeah. This new development for Twisted Metal. Why don't you go into it?
So yeah, apparently, out of all things, Twisted Metal is getting a TV series. It's going to be starring Will Arnett, and it's going to have people who've been behind Deadpool and Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's some legitimate talent behind this. So Deadpool writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, and Cobra Kai writer Michael Jonathan Smith. And they're going to turn it into a franchise, apparently. So it won't be centered around like one of the characters that we all know and love. Basically, it's a new guy, and it almost doesn't seem like the classic Metal Gear, Twisted Metal setup where Calypso's having a tournament, the winner gets whatever wish they want, they all have tortured pasts, blah, 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 blah. He's like, it's an action comedy that follows a outsider offered a chance at a better life. If he can deliver a package across a post-apocalyptic wasteland, with the help of a trigger-happy car thief, he can face marauders, and of course, they mentioned Sweet Tooth is probably going to be like the main guy chasing him the whole time. So it's a little bit different from the typical story, which is fine, honestly. If you're going to make it a serialized thing that will hopefully last a couple seasons, you can't just do the classic idea.
It's a TV series, right? So
yeah,
you can't just have that atypical from the game. And as soon as I read that, I was like, okay, you basically have a funny twist on like the Mad Max style. I almost think of that. Like I think how Mad Max was shot with all the cars. You do that with Twisted Metal, you could have something really good, and you get the right person to play. Shit, why am I blanking? Like
what, Sweet Tooth or
Mr. Grammar and all the other characters? Like this guy will be a kind of a probably whatever neutral character that can just be like the player, if you will, and then you just introduce all the others. I'm gonna be fascinated how they introduce Axel. Is it Axel?
Axel, yep.
Like how they introduce that character. That's gonna be a very weird one. But yeah, man, if they do it right, if it's funny like Deadpool, but ultra violent, ultra crazy with good effects and good writing, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully the series is good and takes off, which means we'll finally get another Twisted Metal game. We haven't had one of them in almost 10 years.
Yeah.
This one wasn't that great, so...
It's kind of interesting that you have that Mad Max movie that came out, which was phenomenal. So, I mean, that's kind of like the bar that you have to reach as far as visuals go. And then you have the Mad Max game that came out, which was also phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so you have something that's like more fresh in people's minds right now because you had a fairly recent game that was incredible. And fairly recent movie, which was absolutely insanely good, and it's visually and story wise. And here you have a game that's clearly kind of based off of this Mad Max Death Race universe. And now, are they going to like really be able to pull that together and have it feel like it's wholly its own deal while still executing some sort of enjoyable plot and visual treat? I don't know.
Right. When with the fan service that you would expect from hearing, like, just Twisted Metal in general. So, no, it'll be, I mean, I don't watch a lot of TV, or especially like serialized TV. So, like, this is something I would actually like make time to sit down and watch.
Yeah, like when's the last Twisted Metal game that was really good? I mean, to me, it was probably Black.
Oh, that was good.
Black.
Black, right?
Head on the PSP is good, but I would say that was the last one.
Yeah, but no one
But for
played
one
that.
but for one that most people would have played, it would have been Black. Yeah, Black was fucking great. Oh my god.
Yeah, it was definitely Black, and that's the thing is, Twisted Metal Gemini. We've talked about it a few times. That's one of those series that got that, it just kind of died off. And even though they kept the characters with PlayStation All Stars and they tried, it just
Tried the reboot.
It just didn't go anywhere. So maybe this is the boost it needs.
It was kind of interesting when when that game came out, there was also that Vigilante 8, which was really similar and very popular. And these are reasons also to have like a PlayStation or 64 even to this day. And then you had a game that was like a little bit less violent, which was that Destruction Derby, which had kind of like that same feel, but without the guns, right?
Yep.
But all three of those games are just very iconic, for the time that they came out. And they came out so close together. And it is kind of interesting that if you go back and you play them, they're still incredibly good games. And we really haven't seen anything comparable in
The
decades.
genre didn't carry over.
Something about the 90s and the destructive car derby style, it completely fizzled out. Like in the 2000s, I can't even think of it's like kart racers took off, regular racers were fine, but the destructive kill other cars, destroy other cars, it just didn't really take off. I mean, also, I completely attribute that with, I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, going to, monster car shows and Gravedigger and all that, that was a big event. And even Simpsons covering that with the big T-Rex, Truckosaurus, like that was a thing that was huge. And now I don't see anything even close to that on TV or any stuff. So, yeah.
Right, we all know that it all peaked with WWE Crush Hour, so they could never top it, and they knew that, so no one ever tried again.
Wait! What's this game? I don't know if I've heard of this one.
You never heard of it, huh?
No.
How odd. No, but what do you call it? WWF actually decided to do its own version.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was like the PS2 era. It was on everything.
I feel like I missed out on something classic here.
Well, especially for your channel, when you get into the deep dives on the destruction car genre. There you go. You're welcome.
So yeah, hopefully this I'm all for it. I think that'll be an interesting and fun twist on a show. Will Arnett's funny, and the people.
Twisted Metal, Brian.
Hate you,
I'll
Jim.
just go now.
There really is. I feel like this is, if there ever was a time that a game like that could succeed, it's right now. Because,
For sure.
I'm not even so much thinking a single player game, although that's like really what I would prefer. But you put it out like a battle royale style type of deal. There's just so much potential.
Rocket League took off and sold like hotcakes.
And that's a car with a ball. Car with a gun? I mean, that's like 10 times better, right?
You basically take all the same mechanics from Rocket League and just put guns on things. People will go nuts. That's all I'm saying.
I fully agree. Fully agree.
And shit, even add in the Fortnite method, make it free, then add in all of like the drivers Ryu with a gun, or like, Hadouken. Like, you tie it in and just expand it. It could easily work.
Oh, what if they got download packs for Vigilante 8 cars and you finally get that mishmash you never had back in 1998 we always wanted?
I just want a new Vigilante 8 game. Just give it to me. I'll be happy. I'll be good, I promise.
Give me my alien spaceship. Let me fight Minion with it. Come on now.
And then, so for our final topic, and this is an interesting one because I want to see where you guys fall. I mean, Jim, you put it up here, but Sean, I'm really interested. So, coming from Game Box Gods, I don't know if you ever heard of them, but they specialize in making repro Nintendo game boxes, and they seem to cover everything from NES, Super NES, 64, Game Boy, and everything in between, all the way up to the Switch. They basically just have the same style, and it looks like the same material, cardboard, the high gloss finish pictures. They're not, I mean, they look as close to identical as possible from all the pictures I'm seeing in the links. So, for all intents and purposes, you're getting a new, just unlicensed box. And they all range basically around 11 or 12 bucks for a brand new box for your games. So, what do you guys think? Is that something that interests you at all? I'm just amazed with the way Nintendo is that they haven't shut these guys down, because they've been apparently operating for 5 years.
I hate it. I hate it. And there's multiple reasons why. I guess if they would brand it with their brand on the front, it probably wouldn't bug me. And it doesn't bug me when people create their own cases, but when you actually try to do a one-for-one recreation, it makes it really difficult, because somebody gets a hold of something and they don't know what they have, and then they end up reselling it to somebody else saying think it's like a legit deal, and it's not. And it's really unfortunate. And I run into this problem all the time when I'm trying to track down replacement cases or replacement boxes, and they're not legit. And it's quite upsetting in a lot of ways, because you spent your time and money to track stuff down, and then to receive it and it's fake. It's not very cool. So I'm not necessarily against repros, but I think they need to be labeled as such. And when they're not, I think that's it's beyond questionable. I think it's straight up unethical is what it is.
So I'm looking at the boxes right now to answer your question. I'll be honest, I'm not seeing from the pictures
I didn't see anything
that show it's from them. I mean, they even have, like, from what would be on the atypical boxes, the Nintendo seal of approval. So, yeah, it definitely, if you were an unknowing consumer, you probably would not know the difference between the original and this.
And that's my biggest problem with it. Like, at this point, I don't even touch like Game Boy Advance carts because of how rampant the piracy is on them and the counterfeiting. Yeah. So much less having someone out there. And I mean, not to take away from their quality of work, they look really good and they look legit. But exactly like Sean's problem, how do you not have anything on there written, this is a repro? Or like some little logo or just something to differentiate it? Because you know some eBay or all the eBay sellers are going to buy them all up and they're going to list them as complete in box and say, you know, or just boxed game and say this is legit, and everyone's going to overpay and they're just going to rake it all in. So
yeah, it's like
it sets a really bad precedent.
It's like if you have Spider-Man Web of Fire for the 32X and it's just a cart, it's probably worth about $600 or $700, and if you have it with the box, it's worth about $2,000 right now. So you know, it makes it very enticing for somebody to go out and try to find one of these boxes and pass it off as legit. And you know, and it's unless you have like a nice collection or you're really familiar with stuff, sometimes it's really hard to tell what the difference is. And for a lot of people, they're going to get had, and it's going to be too late to really rectify. And somebody's making some money, and the person on the other end is getting screwed. And it's highly unethical, highly unethical. You know, whatever you do for your own collection is one thing, but even then, there becomes an issue because, like, I have about 3,000 games. I have a lot of games. I have 3,000, probably a little bit more than that, and you know, my kids don't know a whole lot about my collection. So if something happens to me, I make sure I tell them, like, hey, look this up and make sure, like, you know, I've told my wife multiple times, if something happens to me, you can go and sell it off, but just don't sell it all bulk. You know, it's like games in there, like Panzer Dragoon Saga that needs to be sold by itself. You know, if something happens to me, sell it. But if I was buying the stuff and putting it with my games, you know, replacing NES boxes or new art or I've seen there's like new booklets for Saturn games, and I think it's like really troubling because I have it on my shelf and she sells it, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know, it's floating around as being a legit deal, and it's not right. There's nothing right about it at all, you know. So yeah, I feel pretty strongly about this.
Yeah, that's why I was interested to have it, especially with you, because I knew you were a collector as well, and my collector mindset's originally like immediately just went to, oh no, great, now I can't buy like any. I don't buy Nintendo box stuff anyway, except for N64 because that was my childhood. But just in general now, I'm like, well, if unless I'm at a store, I'm never touching a box at Nintendo anything because, you know, you get that first person to poison a well, then it's basically downhill after that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a bunch of greedy people, and I own repos, and I don't have like an issue with it, but they're marked, you know, appropriately marked, I should say, and I think like there's a lot of guys in the Saturn community that are making translated. I don't know if like repro is really the right deal, but it's like an aftermarket copy with the translated version that was never released in a certain region, and they make it all up. And I think that's okay because if it's like you're buying Winkle Liver Story on the Saturn and it's a North American release, well, there is no such thing. It never happened, you know. So it's quite clear what you got is an aftermarket deal that somebody put together, and I'm happy supporting that work. So we actually have access to some of these games that there would be no other way to play because I don't speak Japanese, and for a text-heavy RPG like that, there's just really no way to approach it. So they're really kind of doing the community a service at preserving this in English, and so it's accessible, right? But when you're taking like, I'm trying to think of what game they're probably doing this with, but you know, like a Contra or you know Kirby or whatnot on the NES, and you're producing a new box, and that's really kind of crossing a line that shouldn't be crossed. And we see this with Pokemon stuff all the time. I mean, that's probably the most common.
Or dude, how many Power Stone tunes out there can you just not trust?
Yeah. It becomes dangerous to where you're just best to just pick up a flash cart and not even collect the game anymore because just too much doubt about something's authenticity.
Yeah, and that's where so you two are like I'm a collector, but I've said between Jim and I, like I'm the one who plays game. Like I what's more important to me is I just want to play the game. Like I do have certain games I want to collect. I don't collect with any intention of like ever reselling. Like you said, you know, whenever I go, if my kids sell off my games or don't want them, that's on them. But I don't have the intent of like I'm not buying it for the authenticity or just keeping it in a sealed box and saying I have the foremost collection of every whatever game. So I looked at this like it is weird, but then I asked Jim, I said, well, have you ever bought a box like for a loose game that you bought to try to like get a complete edition? Yep. I almost right away, my mind goes like, well, if you didn't get the actual box that it came in, like, isn't that kind of like a jip too? Because you're getting the original box, but it's not with the actual game. Not that that matters as much, but that's when I get into my mind says like, how much does a piece of used cardboard actually matter versus a repro? I agree with you in the terms of like, I think of it like, I'm very much into like muscle car restorations and things like that. I don't like repros of those things, especially like Chevelles and things of those natures. But I look at like video game like this particular instance where unless you're buying a game with the intent of like, I'm buying this to get the complete collection in order to sell or validate it or become a museum or historian, I don't see as big of an issue, but I can see where it gets completely murky. And as you said, it's not moral to say, if you're not letting people know that this box you're purchasing is a repro, that's pretty messed up. But like I said, I'm looking at it from a personal standpoint, and I just go, is it that big of an issue for the box? A game, I think I have a different mentality for, but a box is where I'm like, well, I don't understand the value in like the original box versus a repro box, unless you're getting the original.
$200.
No. I'm saying I know the rarity, but that's what I'm saying. Like, Jim, you've bought boxes that were, you hope, original boxes.
Oh yeah.
And matched
there's a very good chance I've been cornholed before.
Yeah.
Like there's probably some fake sitting in here.
But it's like kind of the same. I look at it as like that wasn't the box that came with the game you have anyway. So you're really selling. You're not selling a repro, but you don't even know if you're getting in the same exact distribution, all the things. So you're really mishmashing different parts and saying
but it's not quite like a car though, because like with a car, you're trying to a numbers matching car is important, right? But there is no such thing as a numbers matching game set.
Exactly.
So like I mean, like for example, I picked up Phantasy Star 3 is a game I never owned, and I picked it up, and I found it really cheap, but it was missing the manual. So like I have like a list of some of the games I'm missing like a manual or box for, and so I was like, when I'm at these shows, I'll go and I'll flip through the manual stuff, and I found the manual for it, and I put it in there. Now it's complete, and I think that's just fine. And sometimes I definitely have boxes here. It happens to me all the time where I'll lose a game. It's kind of a silly deal, but I don't know exactly what happens, but I end up with boxes though where I just don't have the games, and
Sure.
I'll take them down to my buddy's shop and just give him the boxes, and he'll put them up for sale for a couple bucks, and help somebody complete their collection.
Yeah.
So,
But there's even there's even like the mishmashing, like my Streets of Rage 3. Like when I got it as a kid, my dad got it from a rental store that was going out of business. So it's definitely like the Majesco copy. So it's got the black and white manual, and it's got the sticker on it, the black and white label. But I have it in the clamshell original artwork thing. So it's like two different mishmash releases, but I'm still like, that's complete enough.
Yeah, well, see, that's like a little bit of a different deal though when you start getting into the Majesco releases, because that's kind of like mixing part numbers from cars. So that is a little bit different, because those Majesco copies are actually lesser quality than the original releases. They were all made down in Mexico.
Jim's a fraud.
Yeah, Jim. Yeah.
Oh shit! I saw myself out. Nicole.
But I think what happens though with these repo boxes and manuals is that you have expectations from people that what they're getting is the real deal, and the rarities. Some people, I think I'm kind of with you, Brian. I buy this stuff, and I don't really have. I can't tell you the last time I sold a game. I don't. Maybe I don't even know if I ever have sold any games at all. I've gotten some doubles in. I've traded them with my buddy who owns that store. For a long time, when I beat games, I'd actually give them to friends. I always felt really guilty about selling them. I still do. So I just kind of just hold on to my stuff. It's just not what I do. But I do realize that down the road, somebody might be looking for something, and I just don't want them to end up with something that it's not,
Yeah. No. That's what I'm saying. It's like, I agree, because you're thinking, you're doing the right thing and thinking of the next person who potentially has this. You don't want them to have the knowledge, and that's where like I'm so much of the personal gamer, like you said. Like I'd rather give the games to a friend, keep it in the family, do something to that effect, because who knows? Like all the games I get, even if you go to a market, you don't know the difference between a repro or whatever. There is that deceit, but I always think of the person that cares the most about getting the version that is the original. I either think their intent themselves, or either they're just worried about the value, putting it on a shelf forever, in some cases maybe a museum, and to me that defeats the whole purpose of just enjoy the game. Like that gets away from the value of the game. Like you're treating it like the baseball cards or whatever, where like you're now taking away. I don't like things that just become on shelves for display, like especially an interactive thing like this. Whereas like baseball cards, all they were meant for was looking anyway. Piece of art, it's going on a wall to look at. Video games are meant to be played, and when you have things sealed that never see the light of day or whatever, I'm like, well, are you doing that for financial gain?
I just have like a crap ton of EverDrives here. This is probably part of them.
Yep.
That's what he beat me to it. I was gonna be like, if you're gonna spend the money on all these repros, why waste it on something that's not real and just get an EverDrive to play the game?
And a lot of times I'll check out games on EverDrives, but there's a massive part of me, and it's probably mental, but I don't know, and maybe it has something to do with me doing my show, where I like to have the full experience. And
sure.
Back then, it was like a different experience having the box. You read the back of it. You open up the case. You pull out the manual, and then you start reading over the manual. And I like that full experience, And I kind of maybe to a certain degree where I kind of don't buy games unless they're actually complete, because if I just want to play a game and that's not a big deal, I'll throw it on EverDrive.
Yeah.
And if I really like the game, I'll stop playing. I'll try to track down a physical copy so I can actually get like the full experience of pulling out the manual and reading over it. And sometimes for like I don't have it sitting behind me, but for some games like Calibri on the 32X is a perfect example. There's actually like a tutorial to get started in that game. And I remember talking to people that hated that game because they couldn't figure out how to get started. Well, if you read over the manual, it tells you that you have to go up to this certain flower and touch the flower, and that starts the game. Well, if you don't know about that, you might never even touch the flower, and you're just like pissing around in the first level, and you're like, screw this, I can't figure out how to get started, you know?
Right.
So the manuals were like a really critical part of the experience, and I think it's probably, for me, a lot of nostalgia that goes into it. But I truly do enjoy that full aspect of opening up a game, pulling out the manual, reading through the whole entire deal. It takes me back to buying a game like Mega Man 1 at Walmart with my folks, and then you crack open the box because you're so excited to play it, and you're reading over the manual on the way home, and you're kind of familiarizing yourself with what to expect and how the mechanics are going to work and what options are available to you that are at least revealed in the manual, right? And so, I mean, that's, for me, that's a big part of it. And you know, when you decide like of the 32X, I wanted to complete my full set, and I did it years ago, but some of the games were still expensive back then, and it's like, well, if I want to complete my set, and I have to buy this freaking baseball game, which I know sucks. It's like one of the worst baseball games released on the Sega system, but it's like $200. I want to make sure that's like actually a legit game, you know?
Legit, yeah.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to buy a crappy game because I want to complete a set, it needs to be legit, you know? But then like on the Turbo, I own probably 20 or 30 repros that are like really expensive to buy, and I just wanted to play the games. I didn't really care so much. So there's a company that makes them that's you know, they people have some animosity.
They were in water for a little bit too, because they were making really close copies, like we're talking about here.
You're talking about PC Engine Works?
That's it.
Yeah. When they first came out, they actually didn't put no identifying marks on their packaging, and that did put them in the hot water with the community. But ever since then, they have actually labeled the packaging, and you know, people get really bent out of shape because they'll be like, oh, you know, you're buying this package of 5 games for like $90, but I mean, it is like maybe better quality than the original stuff when it was actually released. It's actually incredible what they're doing, and you know, there's definitely a market for that. And whether you agree with the efficacy behind them actually putting those games out or not, at least with the way that they're actually presenting them, there's no gray area.
Yeah, you know,
at least not now.
And that's what, like, that's my point is I think for sure the video game cart is the sacred part of it, like, because like you said, I'm all for if I play a game, if I emulate it, if I do EverDrive, whatever I do. If I get a chance to play and I really love it, I'm going to go out and collect it. Like, I've done that with Castlevanias. I've done that with Legend of Zelda. Like, I've done it with a couple games where I'm like, I need to go out and get the real copy, because then I want to play it as close to the original, like on the real system with the real controller from the real hardware. It's that next level where, like you said, the manual, if it's reproduced, you're still getting the same information. The box is still just now it's the aesthetic of it. Now you're taking that collector's mentality to that different level. And that's why I said, you and Jim, I can appreciate where you guys, I've never been there, just because I go, at the end of the day, I care about the guts.
Let me show you one thing. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay. So talking about repro cases, now here is like a bunch of Game Boy games I have cases for that are obviously not original. They never came in the hard shell cases. And, you know, you can see I have Mega Man 1 and 2 and Metroid 2 and all the Mario Lands and some Zeldas and stuff in here. You know, some of the better games on the Game Boy. And, you know, it's just...
It's so obvious, kind of.
That's super out. Yeah.
So I think that there's, you know, I can understand why you'd want to have a case of some sort, but it's
you just don't want that deceit, the deception of like, we're trying to pawn this off as if this was the real, and that's where I'm torn, because on one hand I'm like, damn, the quality is really good on these things, and they do look legit.
It's too good.
And that is a problem. Like, and maybe there's something on there. I've read through the literature. But damn,
there's too big of a market for people that want to scam other people for them to not put out something like that, you know. And there's always going to be a market where people want to get over on somebody else, and it's really an unfortunate situation. So
I'd even be fine if they put on the inside maybe a watermark on the inside cardboard.
Oh yeah,
to just say like, hey,
that'll be fine. Yeah,
like, because like I said, the outside, on one hand, it's like, dude, if you just want your collection to look nice and you want it, I'm also the type, because I am such a gamer and I'm not a collector. I'm like, do I want to spend 10, 20 bucks on a piece of cardboard just to hold this
Yes.
stuff? Jim will do it all day long. Me, as you see, like I'm fine with the loose carts, but I'm a different mentality, and I can fully understand that. But no, like I said, I get it. Unfortunately, the deceit is there for a lot of people, and it is unfortunate.
Look, when I buy my repro copy of Divine Sealing, it looks different, damn it, because I have ethics.
Jim, you have many things. I don't know if ethics are one of them.
Well, that's another issue with some of these cart-based games when you get into the repros, is that you just don't know, how the circuitry was done on it, and are they going to be safe long-term for your system? Or are they going to cause pin damage because, the PCB being fatter than it should be, which is a common issue. So, there's definitely a lot of concerns when you're actually running real hardware with stuff that was put out by somebody who's just trying to turn a buck.
Yeah, and that's like I said, that going back to the card thing, like I'm the same way. Like, that's the guts. That's your engine. That's your transmission. Is everything gonna work? But like, that's where I have an issue of anything that's like, if it's not the spec, like I'm not cool with it. But no, like I said, I can understand both your opinions on this. So make sure, if you're listening, if you're watching, comment below. What do you think? Good? Is it bad? I'm probably in the minority of thinking it's a kind of meh issue unless you actually label it. But
when you comment down below, just tell us how right Jenovi and Jim is and how wrong Brian is.
Tell me for once how right I am. Oh, God, I need this.
But no, with that, we want to say, Sean, we truly, truly, truly appreciate you coming on. We did have a blast talking with you. We can't stress
links
enough.
Will be below to all of your stuff.
Everything.
No matter what platform.
Please make sure you follow him. Like I said, he does, as you can tell just from his conversation, he's very knowledgeable. He goes completely in depth, does a ton of research. Check out all of his videos. They are well worth your time. And Sean, once again, we do want to say thank you for coming on the show with us.
Yeah, thank you, Jim, and thank you, Brian. I really appreciate it. It was a good time, and hopefully I wasn't too scatterbrained. It's just a lot of times these live deals are a little bit tough for me because I really stumble over myself. I get too excited, and then I have a hard time getting out cohesive thoughts. So
no, please, you're like scatterbrained with like actual knowledge instead of me being scatterbrained with
with just misinformation left and right.
Whatever just comes out of my
Jim
mouth.
is basically
so now you're great.
So
my circuits ain't right.
New shirt.
Yeah,
Repo Jim.
Jim the repro man. You can be him.
Yes.
Oh, there's my new gimmick. There you go, Asheville.
So with that, everyone, please make sure, if you haven't already, also hit subscribe for us below. If you're listening to us on iTunes or Spotify, make sure you subscribe. If you want to give us a rating, please give us a 5. You can bash us in the ratings, but comment. We always do respond, and we always do read. So thank you all once again. Have a good night, and cheers.
Cheers, guys.